Relax and enjoy the ride. In crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, 815.
It's pretty apparent to me, Tom, most people haven't jumped in weeks. How about you?
Okay. I'm at a loss for words. I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean jump?
Most people have not jumped for any reason whatsoever in
Okay,
weeks.
all right.
Look around
Like
you.
jump
Just
off-
look around you the
jump
next
off
time you're
the
out and about.
step. Yeah. Okay. All right, I got you. I wasn't thinking
I'm
that
Greg.
mindset.
He's Tom. It's your In Crowd 815 podcast for the 27th day of July, the year 2024, the latest it has ever been.
Packer Day, by the way, in the history of mankind.
You made it. Congratulations. Thanks for tagging along with us today. Go Pack Go. Go Pack Go. We are going to talk a whole lot of Packers today with our good friend Jacob Westendorf, writer for Sports Illustrated, the Packers beat writer for SI, going on just over a year now, I believe. So looking forward to catching up with him here in just a momento. Before we do that,
And by the way, let me just say one thing, one caveat. Bear fans, we love you. Some of my absolute best friends, I have a lot of friends. Some of my absolute best friends are Bear fans, and we argue Bear Packer football all the time, but all in good fun. So if we say, especially me, I'm more likely to do it. Anything that seems offensive, I mean it. I mean no harm. I'm just being silly and stupid. But obviously this is a Packer show today, so you're probably not going to want to. You're not going to want to stick around.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. Let's do this first before you get.
All right.
Our current race to 10 has Joanne playing the part of the Packers, leading 5-1, or I should say playing the part of the Brewers. Tom's playing the part of the Cubs. That's what's going on right now. 5-1. And our big number of the week this week, 1.3 billion. 1.3 billion. And the answer, is it auction or ads? ADS, ads or auction? 1.3 billion. Let us know in the comments what you think the answer might be, and tell a little story. Make it fun. Tell a little story about why you think your pick is the right answer. That'd be kind of fun to do. And then we'll see if Joanne is able to jump in with us today. I bet she'll come in at the end. We'll see what she's got going on today. Quick shout outs before we get to our guests, since saving these to the end. I don't know when the end's going to be. I want to give a shout out to the whole Saunders Kidrick clan family for our family reunion last week. When this show ended last week, immediately after, we hopped in the car and drove up to Black River Falls for a family reunion. The weather was perfect. The Lunda, Lunda, the Lunda Community Park in Black River Falls is just amazing. It's a beautiful place. Great music shell, great shelter to have parties in and stuff. Just beautiful. So kudos to them.
How far up is it?
It's
I don't know where it is.
About a 3-hour drive. It's
okay.
Yeah, can be a little over 3 hours.
Further than Janesville, right?
Yeah, it's up there.
A little bit,
way up there. Shout out this week also to Starlight Theater. Legally Blonde and Guys and Dolls are done. Color Purple, you have 2 more chances to see that tonight and tomorrow night at 8. And then next week it's Newsies to wrap up the main part of the season. Beauty and the Beast is on the stage in the second weekend of August, and those are aged 8 to 18. You will be absolutely thrilled, and your mind will be blown by the talent that these kids have locally that you'll see on the stage for Beauty and the Beast. So be a part of that. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Foreman on getting their house under contract this week. It's a tough time. It's a tough time to get a house under contract. The inventory is still low, and there's plenty of buyers. So just about every offer we write is competing against a lot of other buyers. So,
well, it's good to see that Red and Kitty got a house. I like
that. You know what's funny? I'm working with 2 families right now named Foreman, and they spell their name differently. One uses the E in the middle, one doesn't. It's kind of funny. So I got to be very careful when I'm managing that. Okay, which foreman am I talking to? All right. Kudos to Mosaic. Mosaic of Rockford had their annual picnic at Sinisippi Park this week, and it was a beautiful day for that. It was great, and they had an awesome turnout. Just a beautiful day. Mosaic, you guys do such a wonderful job. Speaking of great jobs, Wellness Tree Family Chiropractic. They hosted In Crowd 815 networking group Thursday night in Belvedere. Had a great turnout out there as well. Dr. Prado and his massage therapist, Brandy. Thank you, Brandy, for that chair massage. I feel like a new man again. It was a great night. Awesome, fun night at Wellness Tree Family Chiropractic. And next month, last Thursday of August, we're going to be out at Marcus Smith State Farm along with Fresh Prince of Loves Park. They share a parking lot, and we're going to have our in-crowd networking group there at the end of August. Had a chance to meet with the ladies of Nick's Wish, Kelly and Tammy. Looking forward to the December event. We'll be doing December 4th. Keep that as a placeholder on your calendar. You'll want to be a part of that. Ski Bronx. Haven't been able to ski on the river, but they have been skiing in a slightly undisclosed location to practice for the national tournament, which Division II national tournament is coming up next week. They ski 1 week from today in that tournament. Speaking of skiing, how about surfing? Rock Surfers. Have you seen the Rock Surfers perform yet, Tom?
I have not.
The Rock Surfers, cover band, lots of 70s and 80s music. Saw them at Shattered Saloon last night. Really, really good. Tracy and her guys are just so good. And it's funny. I'm sitting at a table in the back with a guy that I used to live with in Loves Park. Live on the same street in Loves Park. Former neighbor of mine, and his best friend. And then Christy, my wife, came in a little bit later, and Mark, my Chuck's buddy, Mark leans over and goes, "I think we're the youngest people here." There's a lot of older folks jamming to the oldies last night. We had a really, really good time.
Oh, that's cool. I don't do a lot of concerts. I don't do a lot of bar bands. I don't. But I want to. So then
I don't either.
I'm still waiting to see that girl. Yeah, but in the last 6 months, you've seen however many you've seen is that many more than I've seen. So
between Rock Surfers and Blue Steel, when they're nearby, I try to make sure to get out and see them. They're really, really good.
And you've seen that girl a few times, right?
That girl, that's right. That girl's really good too. So, and last shout out for this week. Last shout out would be October 17th. Again, another mark your calendar. October 17th. We expect to release the info of that event later this week. August 1st is my goal date to get that information to the public, so you know how to participate in what's going to be, I believe, the annual signature event of In Crowd 815's networking group. So I'm so crazy excited about that. Keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, Michael Ruffcorn, we will go Pack Go. We will bring on our good buddy Jacob Westendorf from Sports Illustrated. Good morning to you, my friend. How is you today?
Doing well. Pads are on in Green Bay, Wisconsin today, so it's real football, real practice. That is always one of my favorite times of the year. So and a little bit of money being thrown around in Green Bay over the last 10 days or so.
Is any of that a surprise to you when it comes to the contracts that they've signed? We'll get into the Jordan Love deal that just signed yesterday, but is any of the deals that they've done so far a surprise to you?
No, Kenny Clark was entering the final year of his deal. Maybe a little surprising because they don't typically do third contracts with guys. And I think in the last 15 years or so, like big contracts, like there's a couple exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, it's like Aaron Rodgers got 3 contracts. David Bakhtiari got 3 contracts. That contract, unfortunately, did not turn out well. No fault of his own. Just, unfortunately, awful, rotten, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad luck for him.
Mm-hmm.
So the Clark thing got a little interesting maybe there, but I mean, the quarterback situation, which we're going to get into, I mean, you have a quarterback, you pay him. And like living in this area, you've seen the alternative, which is not having a quarterback, and that doesn't work. So, he was good for more of last year than he wasn't. And in the last 2 months of the season, he was the best quarterback in the NFL statistically. So, I mean, yes, the price kept Yesterday's price wasn't today's price, but like you're happy to pay it because you guys have sat and watched, the rare instances where Green Bay had to start Brett Hundley or when Jordan Love wasn't very good or Matt Flynn was like, you guys have seen the alternative of not having a quarterback. That $55 million is money well spent.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone made a point yesterday about the rising cost of quarterbacks and that, what's signed today. Yeah, it's great today, but in 2 years, it's going to be the 5th or 6th or 7th highest paid quarterback now. So that's where the numbers go.
Well, even a couple of years ago when Jordan Love made his first official start, it was that Monday night game against Kansas City. They lost the game. I think it was 14-7 or 13-7, whatever it was. And Jordan Love didn't play horribly considering first game, national TV. He had a week to think about it. You should bring those kids on. Tell them to say hi to the camera.
One's being quiet. One is not.
That's what kids do.
The one wearing the Eagles jersey is being noisy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, I mean, Jordan Love, I think if you really, really paid attention to what you were watching, having Aaron Rodgers over your shoulder, it's like, oh, well, I can't, I better not screw up. When you saw what happened when he didn't have Aaron Rodgers as an excuse or as somebody over his shoulder, he's a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. And furthermore, you're seeing Matt LaFleur's coaching prowess because he doesn't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers in his right ear going, oh, sorry, coach, I don't like that play. I'm going to run my own play. I'm going to throw to Devontae Adams for coverage and throw an interception or a third down miss. So I like what's going on with Jordan Love and the Packers.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. Hey, JW, before we get any further, let's do what we normally do when a guest comes on. Tell people about yourself. Where you grew up. How did you find yourself into this? What career arc led you to the point where you're now writing for Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, so I'm from here in Rockford. I went to high school at Christian Life High School with the entire gaggle of Saunders kids. All 27 of them or something like that. Actually, Greg's wife was my 8th grade math teacher. So I always say she was the best math teacher I ever had because after that is when I stopped understanding it. So that's true. Went to school, went to Rock Valley College, and then started getting my journalism degree at UW Green Bay, freelanced for their newspaper up there, worked for the student newspaper. My first byline was at the time it was scout.com, Packer Report, with Bill Huber, who I currently work for. Just pitched a story to him and said, I have this idea. What do you think? He said, cool. Interned for him that spring. So that would have been the draft that they got. Clinton Dix, Devontae Adams, Jared Abbrederis are some names that come to mind immediately for big stories. So I was able to do that and then just kind of toiled around a little bit, messed with some stuff freelancing wise. I've podcasted. I have been on TV, I've written, and then last April, Bill sent me a message, said, can we do this? What do you think about this? And one conversation led to another, and I said, yeah, I'll help. So I was credentialed for the 2023 season, kind of watched that team up close and personal grow from not very good to really good to a team I think can do anything they want this year up to and including win a Super Bowl.
Couldn't agree more.
And for those who don't know JW's backstory, why is there an Eagles jersey behind you, my friend?
That was my dad's favorite team. So my dad passed away in January of 2022. I used to run my own website. And when I did that, everything kind of happened pretty quickly while we were going through some other stuff with that. A couple friends of mine had that made for me and didn't tell me about it until it showed up on my front door step. So that was cool too. Which reminds me, you guys did shout outs at the beginning. So shout out to my grandma Paula, his mom. It's her birthday today. 29 years young. It's incredible.
Woo.
That's all worked. But
wow.
yeah, my dad was an Eagles fan. So it's kind of cool that the regular season opening this year in Brazil, which is kind of disappointing because I wanted to go to Philadelphia if that was going to be a thing. But season opening in Brazil, the Packers and Eagles.
That is so cool.
About that? What do you think about that opening the season in another country and a long flight away?
I mean, I would always, I mean, the ugly American in me, I guess, says I'd rather have all the games just here and in these stadiums and everything that they have. But there are Packer fans, Eagle fans, NFL fans worldwide that might get one chance every so often to see their team. So giving them an opportunity to do that, like I said, selfishly, I would prefer that they stay here in the area. But as far as I know, one of my friends actually lives over towards that area and is getting to go see his team as a result of it. So I'm happy for Wendell and that crew that's putting all that together too.
That's cool. That's
Why
cool.
don't we send Cincinnati and San Diego over there then? I mean, if they want NFL football, anybody but my Packers. But here's the beauty of it: the Packers still have all of their home games, plus they've got 9 home games, 8 road games, and that 8th road game, the first road game is actually kind of a Packer home game.
Well, they've won in Philly. They won one regular season game in Philly since like 1962 or something like that. So it's not more than that now, actually. But I know it was one. 2010 was the first time they'd won there since 1962. So Philadelphia is a very tough place to play.
And that was a playoff team, yeah.
Yeah, and they're really good too. Like that's the other thing. Philadelphia is a really good team. So getting them on a neutral site, I think, is helpful.
I know. But they were saying, but what I had heard is that there are going to be so many Packer fans there because 1, they travel well, but 2, there's a lot of Packer fans down there. So this is going to be like a home game for the Packers because it's a neutral field. So no advantage in regards to that.
Nobody can wear green.
Yeah.
I think that was debunked. I'd have to look to be 100% sure on something like that, but I think that was like put out as like a no, it's not that big of a deal, or it's not a deal at all. I'd have to
the story that was floating around is there's gang activity in Sao Paulo, and one of the gang's colors is green or something, and so no green. You don't want to be wearing green. And maybe the point was the players wandering around the city before the game shouldn't be wearing green. Maybe game day won't be a problem. I don't know. I haven't really heard much since that first came out, but it was like, okay, that's a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love Facebook.
Yeah, that's there's that too. So, well, the Packers, they are. I think I've got this up and ready to go. They have a preseason schedule that. What do you feel about a preseason schedule? Is this something that you even really care about? Browns, Broncos, and Ravens, whatever, right?
Yeah, the Browns, I know they've got like Jameis Winston as a backup quarterback, so that'll be a good test for the guys. The second group is, he's been an NFL player before. The Ravens have won like 1 million preseason games in a row, or just had some streak snapped last year. They're having joint practices against Baltimore too, and I think they're going to Denver for a joint practice against them as well, which those things are a big deal. And last year they changed their philosophy on, how they were going to approach preseason games when Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback, for especially the last 4 or 5 years. He basically didn't play. I don't think he took one preseason snap under Matt LaFleur. So that was basically null and void. Now, last year they did it different, but they also had basically a brand new team on the offensive side of the ball between rookies and first-time starting quarterbacks. So interested to see if they play it all, or if they put the guys in bubble wrap and say, we need to make sure that you're ready for Philadelphia. I would tend to think last year had them wanting to change their philosophy on it a little bit, but I can't say for sure.
Jake, correct me if I'm wrong. 2 years in a row, they absolutely blew the opening game of the season. 2 or 3 years ago, it was against Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints, and they lost 35-3. The following year, I believe it was the Minnesota game, and they got destroyed. And these were the last 2 Aaron Rodgers season openers because he had not thrown a ball. And remember that iconic, arms up in the air, like, what are you doing? When Christian Watson missed the 75-yarder, first play of the game. Well, Aaron, if you had played even a few preseason snaps, maybe you would have started to get some knowledge of your new receivers, maybe build a little rapport, maybe something. So as much as you want to be upset about the new guys not getting it, it's on you. And it reminds me of Allen Iverson. Practice? Why I need practice? Because your teammates need to know where you are, what you're going to do, what your tendencies are. It's a no-brainer. So I am so glad. I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. Don't Don't read anything into it. I'm just glad he's gone. The Jets can have him. I love Jordan Love. So I think this is going to be a much better season. Last year's opening game, we won. And, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
they also won in 2020 when nobody had practiced and the COVID season happened and they scored 40-something points. Like I don't think two series have that big of an impact on the team. But LaFleur changes philosophy stuff.
Yeah, but I'm not just talking about. No, you're right. But that wasn't it. What it was Aaron Rodgers hadn't played with. He played very little. Remember, he's off doing ayahuasca in Oregon or whatever in a cave in Oregon. So he wasn't even a part of the team, and that was my point. Yeah. He wasn't. He just wasn't a present factor there. That's what my point was on that. Jordan Love's all in. And that's why I think there's so much more hype now. There's so much more. We feel good about what's going on now. At least I do.
Scrolling through the schedule, and we don't even play the Bears till week 11 this year after the bye week.
Yeah, we get a bye.
Wild.
Yeah.
Eagles, Colts, Titans, Vikings. The first 4 games kind of setting the tone for the season. Is there a game of the first 4 that you can see the Packers losing?
Philadelphia for sure. Minnesota has played them tough. That's been kind of a thorn in Matt LaFleur's side. The Titans don't have a quarterback play, but they haven't been a great matchup for them, especially in recent memory. They've got some big guys there. And Indianapolis, I think, is a good team. I don't know if they're a great team. Like, I would expect. I shouldn't say expect. I don't like using terminology like that, but 3-1 is a reasonable expectation through those first 4 games. But the other thing about this team is, I know I said earlier I expect them to be really good, but they were really Jekyll and Hyde last year. They won against Detroit, they won against Kansas City, and then the narrative that emerged from that was that they kind of rolled all the way through that into the playoffs. Well, it's not really true because then they lost to Tampa Bay, who ended up being a good team that made a playoff run. But, then they lost to Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. Like, the Giants were one of the worst teams in the NFL. They almost got beat by Carolina, who was the worst team in the NFL. And then, of course, they won those 3 games in a row, including a playoff game in Dallas. But, the Packers, this isn't like something about – and maybe Jordan Love does make this a thing now, but something about when they had Aaron Rodgers was like, a game at home against a not very good team, that was a layup. Like, even if they didn't play great, you knew they could basically just show up and they're going to win the game because Rodgers is an MVP level quarterback. Is Jordan Love that? I don't know yet. He was for 9-10 games last season. Can he be that for a full season? I don't know. Teams are always going to have clunkers. And of course, the great equalizer in this area is health. We're talking about these 4 games here. Well, if Jordan Love doesn't play in one of them, I don't expect him to win a game that's started by Sean Clifford.
It appears to me that Clifford is like the number 1 hype guy. He's a trash talker and one of those teammates you're glad that's on your team and not the other team because he's really gonna get under your skin.
Yeah, he's smart too. And when they drafted him, some of this storylines that came out about it was that it was for the quarterback room.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get those guys in there, and he's gonna help get them ready for Sunday. So it's not really for his ability so much as his mental ability, I guess.
Sure.
And theoretically, Jake, what you're saying, and I agree with you, any quarterback, any team who loses their starting quarterback for 1 game, 4 games, 6 games is going to feel the crunch. Unless you've got an equally talented backup, in which case he's probably going to go somewhere else anyway. So, and I don't know if any team, at least in the upper echelon, that has an equally talented backup quarterback. There might be a couple, but for the most part, you're going to notice the drop off when you have an injury. So, your 3-1 prediction I'm on board with, but if Jordan Love misses a game or 2, then it could be 2 and 2, or even 1 and 3. And
your microphone's getting a little muffled, Tom. I don't know where your microphone fell, but it's getting muffled on me.
That's
sure it's exposed. Okay. Yeah, it's like, is it in your jersey? Because it's getting all muffled. I can barely understand you.
Okay,
that's better.
I'm Well, no, I'm going to wrap it around again. Remember last week I wrapped it around. I'm going to unplug it for a second.
So the first 4 games. Do you even want to do this, Jacob? I don't know. Do you even want to go through the season and kind of pick wins and losses? I don't. How do you feel about doing stuff like that?
Not like you said. Now, I mean, Jordan Love could get hurt tomorrow, and then now I'm thinking the team's going to finish 3-14. You know what I mean?
Right.
So again, health, trade, free agent sign. Like, there's so many things, and for other teams too. You know, San Francisco could trade Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk tomorrow, and that changes kind of my outlook on them too.
And it sounds like that's a real possibility because Ayuk apparently wants out.
Yeah, they're starting to feel the crunch of having one of the downsides to having a roster as good as the one they have, and they're going to have to pay their quarterback. You can't pay everybody top market deals. It's kind of the deal in Dallas now too, where they're going to pay Dak Prescott, and then they're going to have CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons want to be market setters at their positions. It's hard to do that and field a competitive team around the rest of the group. You know, you got to really draft well when something like that happens.
Well, the other thing about San Francisco too is.
Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I can hear you better now.
The other thing about San Francisco is, okay, yeah, I put it up here. I remind me to do that next week. It seems to work better up there. It doesn't fall down in my jersey. The other thing about San Francisco is they're getting old. They are one of the older teams, I think, in the NFL, and they're George Kittle. He's slowing down. Christian McCaffrey's been beat up like nobody's business. I know he's still in his 20s, but look out. You know, he's getting older. Trent Williams is about 100 years old. So I don't know. I think they're getting old to the point where you're going to start seeing a shift. And I think the balance of power is going to go to L.A. because Los Angeles has become younger. Now that Aaron Donald's gone, now, of course, you're losing Aaron Donald. So that's kind of a trade-off I'm not sure I want. But they're getting younger while San Francisco's getting older. So watch out for the Rams here.
So before we jump into kind of like Packers roster stuff, just looking at the schedule this year, is there a couple of spots where that you are a little bit like, okay, I'm leery of the Texans because they showed up big last year, or I'm leery of how do you feel about Detroit? We do have to play Detroit before the bye week and then once after, and obviously they were the Kings of the North last year. So are any of these teams on the schedule earmarks, big, like worried about teams?
Yeah, that stretch right after the bye where I'm relatively high on Chicago this year. Chicago won 7 games last year with awful quarterback play. Now, maybe Caleb Williams isn't ready for that, but at minimum, he's better. Like, I don't have a very high opinion of Justin Fields, and I don't understand how people do. So I think getting rid of him is addition by subtraction, and Caleb Williams will be better, and I think they have a good roster. So there's that game there. That's not a gimme. San Francisco, if Green Bay is going to win a championship this year, that's the dragon I think they're going to have to slay. That's been the thorn in their side for 12 years now. It's like when I was growing up in the 90s, they always beat the Niners in the playoffs and couldn't beat the Cowboys. Now it's the other way around. They beat up on the Cowboys, but they can't beat the Niners. Miami's very talented. I'll be interested in the elements for that game because of Tua and it's cold. And then at Detroit, at Seattle, those are 2 relatively tough games too. So that little stretch there, I think, is going to be a defining part of the season. And what do I got there? That's 5 games. If they can go 3-2, even 2-3, I think you call that a significant win for that time period. But all of those teams, I could see every single one of those teams I just mentioned making the playoffs.
I think 12-5 wins can win that division. 13-4 definitely, but 12-5, depending on if you split with Detroit, whoever has the tiebreaker probably wins that division. Because I agree, Detroit's a pretty good team. I don't think they're well coached. I think that's their biggest downfall right there. And we saw that in the playoff game against San Francisco last year with Detroit. And I think Dan Campbell's just shoot from the hip, and he's very unapologetic, and then he doubles down. Well, the reason we did that. I don't hear a lot of contrition with him. I don't hear him saying, well, that was on me. I shouldn't have done this or that. He did once. I know I heard it once. But for the most part, I think he's just big macho man who wants to get out there and smash mouth football, run it down your throat, punch you in the face, and whatever happens, happens. And I think he said –
So it kind of worked last year. So I'm a little leery of those guys.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Did it work?
Yeah, they played. They were 5 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl. What do you mean? Did it work?
It didn't work because they didn't make the Super Bowl, and that's a team that should have made the Super Bowl. So let's fast forward.
They were on the road against San Francisco, who probably quote unquote should have won the Super Bowl. Like San Francisco outplayed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like,
yeah,
Detroit, I think is going to take a step backward, but I mean, it is very clear that that entire team buys into Dan Campbell, and they have the best offensive line in the league, and their team identity is very clear. Is that going to win them a championship? I don't know, but
all right. So Dan Campbell said something very poignant. He said, "We may never get here again." He's right. You may never get there again. And my philosophy on Dan Campbell: the team is fine. The coaching is fine. Everything's fine. He knows football. He knows how to motivate. But he makes dumb decisions. And that is why I say that doesn't work for any team. I don't care who you are. You make a really stupid decision in an NFC championship game or any game of good importance, and your team starts to question you. The media's already been questioning him. I've heard countless times, what was Dan Campbell thinking? What was he doing? And it did lose them a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Would they have beaten Kansas City? I don't know. Maybe not. But I see more of that. I see more of that from Dan Campbell.
Well, let me ask you then on the flip side. When Matt LaFleur kicked a field goal against Tampa Bay when it was 31-23, were you on board with that?
No, I was not. No, I was not. You got Aaron Rodgers back there. No, I understand. But I believe Matt LaFleur learns from his mistakes better than Dan Campbell.
That I do agree.
More than one. Dan Campbell had more than one instance just last year alone where he blew. I counted 3 games where he blew. They could have been 14-3. They could have been at least 13-4. They could have absolutely had the number 1 seed in the playoffs. But he blew at least 2, maybe 3 that I counted gained in the regular season just by that Dallas game was a perfect example. They go, we're still going to go for it. Come on, dude. Why? I can't remember if it was the extra point or whether he should have kicked the field goal. I forget now. I think it's the extra point where they had the gift of a lifetime where they got new life and then he goes ahead and goes for it again and they miss it. That was the Dallas game that they lost. And he was crucified for that. You'd think he would have learned his lesson, but he didn't. So that's all I'm saying about Dan Campbell. I believe Dan Campbell's going to lose a couple more games for the Lions. They were a better team than most of the NFL last year, including the Packers, I think. But at certain points, I think the Packers are better. And Campbell's your X factor.
Well, the big factor now is we have a settled in quarterback who got his big contract. And the breaking news last night, as if we planned this the whole time along, was that Jordan Love's now the highest paid player, not just quarterback, right? Player in all of the NFL. 4-year extension, $220 million.
Is it in NFL history based on, probably not, because I think that, per year, $55 million a year. Is that the highest paid player in NFL history? I know Deshaun Watson signed a massive contract for 10 years, but it wasn't. I think that was $28 million. It was like $280 million or something like that. All guaranteed.
Rappaport's thing here on Twitter says highest paid QB in NFL history. So maybe there is one other player that's getting paid more than him, technically speaking, but he's the cream of the crop when it comes to paying the QBs now. And I think he's earned it. I think the last half of last season kind of showed what he really is capable of. So I'm excited.
And even when it comes to earned or not earned or this is how the market works. It's why, like when somebody says, why would the Dolphins pay Tua Tagovailoa X amount of dollars? Because did you watch how many quarterbacks they recycled through for the last 30 years since Dan Marino retired? The same thing where Jared Goff, I get it. You don't want to pay Daniel Jones $40 million, but sometimes a guy just kills it in a season and the great unknown of not having a quarterback. Like, it's easy for guys like us to sit here and say, well, I wouldn't pay him and then just start over at quarterback. Okay, you know what happens when teams start over at quarterback? Most of the time, they lose, and they lose a lot. You know what happens to guys who lose? They get fired. So it's very easy for me to say I would do something when it's not my job that's on the line. For Love specifically, he signed that contract last year, and he gets his opportunity, and he crushes it. And the quarterback market in that time frame went up. He signed his deal when he did. So, again, the alternative is not having one. Worth every penny.
Yeah. To your point, Jake, what happens? I'll answer your question here. What happens when you recycle your quarterback? You start fresh. Well, the players underneath you, his fellow players, they start getting older. They start getting better. They need to be paid. Now you've started over, and now you're also going to start over again with brand new players, rookies at the offensive line, rookies on defense, a rookie running back, rookie wide receivers. Guess what? It worked for the Packers because they did it right. Now they've got the youngest team in the NFL. And correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually younger this year than they were last year. That is unbelievable, yet they've all got more experience. This is unbelievable. Not only that, it's unprecedented. It's never happened before. This is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I have no problem paying Jordan Love. I wish it hadn't taken so long because I feel it could have been bad, but I think all is well. I'm pretty sure we're good.
Do you have a prediction, Jacob, on which wide receiver on the Packers gets paid first?
Oh, that's I think this year's a big year for that. You come into the season last year and we all think it's like going to be Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Doubs had a solid season. Watson in and out of the lineup. He was injured a little bit last year, but they think they got that figured out. He went and saw some specialists for his hamstring.
Yep.
And then Dontavion Wicks and Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed led the team in receiving as a rookie, and he is very impressive, both in person as like a player and as a person. Wicks, same thing. I think this year, like whoever steps up as like the guy, whoever that guy is, and I don't even know that they need one necessarily, but I think in a perfect world, they want to do what they did when they were I actually found my old cover from Sports Illustrated when they were the perfect pack, and they had Greg Jennings and Jordy and Driver and Randall Cobb and Jermichael and all those guys. I think that in a perfect world, the Packers want to keep the whole group together as much as they can. Now, can you do that? I don't know. If you had me ask, now I think their leading receiver at the end of the season is going to be Jaden Reed, but I could see any of those guys I just mentioned as their top receiver in 2024. And I think that's a good thing. You've got, when you've got 4, 5, 6 guys, I know fantasy football people like to think if you don't have a stud receiver that your team's not very good. Well, I think having 4 guys that are pretty good is probably better than having just one guy who's really good. Unless that one guy really is just like the prime of Devontae Adams.
Right.
Yeah. Or a Justin Jefferson or something along those lines.
Well, when you don't have the quarterback, this is what, like, my take on receivers is different than it is from most of the internet, I guess is the way I would explain it. Like, yes, having someone like Devontae Adams on your team is a very good thing. I'm not saying that or anything close to that is bad. However, Justin Jefferson is making quarterback money. The Vikings have never won a playoff game with him there. And now they're starting over at quarterback. At some point, J.J. McCarthy is going to play. If J.J. is not good, Minnesota's not going to be good. So is your receiver worth that? Like, the receiver isn't only as good as the quarterback makes him, but, like, you're not going to win if you have a great receiver. Like, if you have 5 great receivers and a crappy quarterback, you're not going to go very far, So that's kind of the tough part with that situation. But, I mean, Green Bay's got 4 or 5 guys, not including the tight ends and the running back, which Jacobs, I think, will be a big part of the passing game this year.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is an offense that could challenge for the best one in the sport.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because I agree with that. And also keep in mind, when Aaron Rodgers had Devontae Adams in, who cares, right? You had Lazard, you had Randall Cobb. They were not superstars. They were 2s, they were 3s at best. when you had Devontae Adams, all he did was go to Devontae, go to Devontae, go to Devontae. And I keep remembering that game against San Fran a couple of years ago when he goes to Devontae in double coverage on a third down, 3rd and 12, whatever. You got Allen Lazard streaking right across the middle. You hit him, ball game, 17-3 Green Bay with about 4 minutes left. Ball game. And Devontae Adams was his go-to guy because Devontae Adams was maybe the best player on the planet, or at least top 3. And that became a crutch for Aaron Rodgers. Now, Matt LaFleur is a little different. Let's say Jordan Love's a little different. Matt LaFleur tells him what he wants to do. He's like, okay, coach, I'm going to go do it. And boom, it happens. This is the big difference between the two. Is Aaron Rodgers a better quarterback than Jordan Love? Yes, he is, at least at this point in his career. But is he a better teammate, a better communicator? No, I don't think so. I will take Jordan Love any day because he listens to the coach, does what the coach wants. I think what we're seeing is Matt LaFleur's coaching prowess, and that's why the Packers went to the playoffs last year, won a playoff game, and I think you're going to see more of the same in the next 5 to 10 years, probably 10 years, if all goes according to plan.
I'd personally rather have a room full of number 2 wide receivers than one number 1 and a bunch of 3s and 4s. You know, that's
exactly what they have, and I agree.
I guess
absolutely.
I don't know if they planned it that way; it just kind of happened. I don't know.
Oh, they won a Super Bowl by doing that too. Like,
yeah, they did. 2010,
the 2010 team. None of those guys. Like if we were having this show 15 years ago, everybody would be saying the Packers don't have an alpha receiver because that's like the big buzz phrase. No, but you know what? They had Jennings and Driver and Jordy and James Jones, and they were just kind of able to spread the ball and throw it all over the lot, and they won a championship.
Cover them all.
So they had 4 betas,
right? Which fine, fine.
Yeah.
Now, granted, can you win with the top guy and some other guys around him? Sure. The Kansas City's won a championship with Tyreek Hill. They won one without him, and they have Travis Kelce as well. So that's kind of a different outlier for some of the other stuff. But you can win. Everybody acts like there's only one way to win in professional sports. It's like, when the Warriors were winning all their NBA championships, everyone's like, well, just play like Golden State. It's like, okay, so have the best shooter maybe ever, and then the other one of the best shooters ever, and then have Kevin Durant choose to come to this team. Like, there's more ways than one to win. And the Packers, I think, have proven over the last couple of years there's ways to do that. And Kansas City's the gold standard, but you can't, the way Kansas City wins, it says we have Patrick Mahomes. Well, only one team can have Patrick Mahomes. Nobody else does. So you got to find a different way than what they do.
But they also have Andy Reid, and your Golden State example is really good because they won before Kevin Durant, with Kevin Durant, and after Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant's not the X factor there. I think Steve Kerr is. I think the scheme is. I think Steph Curry is. I think Klay Thompson is. It's a team effort. This is what I love about the Packers, team effort. And I agree, Greg, four betas, 4 number 2s, 5 number 2, whatever it is, versus 1 number 1 and then the rest. I like it. I like it because another team, the team defense does not know who to key on. How many times did you see Jordan Love take his second read and the third? There you go. Boom. Your third look is now Jaden Reed right across the middle, or it's Bo Melton on the sideline waiting. Here I am. That is very good on Jordan Love, very good on the scheme, very good on the coaching staff, and very good on your good route receiving, which means very good on your GMs for drafting these guys that they saw something in. So I'm so excited.
Reed got the numbers last year, but my eyes, and tell me if I'm seeing shadows, my eyes tell me Wicks is closer to a Devontae Adams type of a receiver than Reed.
No question.
If you want to go straight comparison, and I'm not putting this on these players because this is one of my problems with comps is everyone just assumes that's what they are now. But yeah, Wicks is more Adams, Reed is more like Randall Cobb. And, you've seen the Packers have had plenty of success with both of those guys. And then, I don't have a comparison for Christian Watson if you want Romeo Doubs to say he's James Jones. And again, Watson's the scariest part of this whole thing because if he clicks, he's the most talented of that group. And And we've seen it, right? Like the end of that 2022 season, like had us talking about it at the beginning of the 2023 season, like, well, Jordan has Christian Watson, who he can rely on, and Watson's on his way to tearing up the league. That didn't happen. A couple hamstring injuries and some inconsistencies got in his way, but I'm still fully aboard the Christian Watson train.
I am too.
As the most talented receiver on the team. Now, the reason I like Reed, it's easier to just scheme up stuff for him, and he's a little bit better with yards after the catch. Whereas Watson might have a game where he impacts the game because he pulls 3 defenders with him, opening things up. But, you know, if you pull 3 defenders with you, they're probably not going to throw you the ball, or at least you hope that they don't.
Right.
But, again, put all that stuff together, and if you mix this up, I think the biggest problem that LaFleur's going to find, Bill Huber just wrote a story about this, is they have so many guys, is how do you keep them all happy? And they're saying all the right things now, but, you know, it's easy to say the right things when there's no games that have been won or lost. And you start losing, some guy that normally has 5 or 6 catches only has 1. You know, do they start chirping a little bit behind the scenes or even worse to the media? I don't know. Like, that's a challenge, and it's one that you welcome. It's a good problem to have because that means you got a lot of guys who do the ball. But there's only 1 ball, and there's 9 guys because we haven't even talked about the tight ends, and those are 2 more guys that I think you can toss.
The tight ends and running backs. We still need to talk about those guys.
And we also haven't thrown Bo Melton into the mix, and Samari Toure, who I think is very good, but probably won't be on this roster. I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. He was last year. They didn't really do a lot with wide receivers, drafting anybody. I don't think. I think they might have gotten 1, but it was a later pick. They didn't draft it. Okay. Yeah, and they focused a lot on defense, which I thought was wonderful. But Marshawn Lloyd, there you go. You're going to get some receiver action from him.
Jacobs and A.J. Dillon, your 3 top backs, right? Is that going to be enough to salt away games when you're up by 15?
I will say this, and I know that like everybody rolls their eyes when they say this, but A.J. Dillon looks better than I've ever seen him. He looks like a lean, mean fighting machine. And maybe that won't matter. You know, maybe that won't matter when the games start because Dillon hasn't looked like that player since the late part of 2021. That's a long time ago now. But he looks like somebody who got some humility in the offseason. Remember, went to the free agent market, got basically no money to come back to Green Bay. He's guaranteed absolutely nothing. And trying to show off his skills and get himself a bigger contract for 2025, he looks like a player that could do something like that. And when it gets cold and nasty out at Lambeau and Soldier, and I guess there's only 2 outdoor stadiums in the NFC North now, so it'll only be 1. When it starts getting like that, guys like that are hard to tackle. And that's kind of the vision the Packers had when they drafted him. It just hasn't come to fruition because he hasn't run like that. He's guaranteed nothing. You know, if Marshawn Lloyd, who's missing practice with a hip injury, can come back and is able to, you know, do some things, Dillon might be nailed to the bench. Like that's a possibility as well. Jacobs, I think they're going to be able to rely on a little bit more than they were Aaron Jones because he's a little bit bigger. But I think you've got those 3 guys. Matt LaFleur has talked a bunch about wanting 3 backs that can carry the ball. And then I didn't even talk about Emmanuel Wilson. Last year's preseason darling, he's had a nice little start to camp as well. He's probably a long shot to make the roster, could end up on the practice squad. But having a guy like that as like your stash away back, that's something the Packers had last year with like they tried it with Kenyon Drake and Taylor and James Robinson, and none of them really found their way into helping like that. So I'm interested to see how all that goes. But you know, you talked about the backs. I think this backfield has a chance to be more productive than it was in 2023, partially because I think Jacobs should be healthier than Aaron Jones was, and Dillon looks like a much better version of himself.
And also, don't forget, they've got a 1-2 punch, I think, with Marshawn Lloyd, Jackson, and Lloyd. If they keep bringing in a fresh back, and now all of a sudden you need a 3rd down and 2, you bring in an A.J. Dillon, who is still he's kind of a hybrid fullback. I mean, I think they're going to use him in more of a fullback type of a role, like a youth check from San Francisco. Something along those lines where he's coming in and you've got an already tired defense because you're already on play 8 or play 9 or whatever, and he just rams it forward and gets a couple of yards. I think he's going to reinvent himself, and he's got nothing to lose and everything to prove because it's essentially his breakout year if he can do what we hope he can do. I think they've got go ahead.
Well, you
I would say
mentioned
they-
the tight ends. I wanted to say, just ask you what you're seeing with those guys too, because they looked great last year.
Yeah,
Yep.
so Tucker Kraft is hurt. He's not practicing, which
Okay.
is a bit of a bummer. But he's kind of more of your all-around yards after catch skills tight end, and he had a nice little glow up between the end of the season because he has had everybody Deacon Gray.
There
say
he
hi,
is.
Deacon. But
Hey,
Tucker Kraft is like the nice little microcosm of Green Bay season because he started slow, and there were times where like we were literally saying, "Is he the worst guy on this Packers roster?" Like it was that tough of a start for him. And tight end's tough; it's a tough position. You're throwing uphill. Luke Musgrave was the starting tight end almost immediately. He was starting to find his stride, and then he had an injured kidney where he played the rest of the game on a lacerated kidney. Went home, took a leak, and saw blood in it, and then had to like call and be like, "Hey, this is a problem." And they're like, "Yeah, kind of a big deal."
Yeah.
So
get your butt
he's
in
tough
here.
as nails, first of all. So because I'm kind of like, this is a big deal, Blake Elizabeth, everybody.
Hey,
And it was like Musgrave is, if you want to again use comparisons, Musgrave is like Jimmy Graham, not Green Bay version Jimmy Graham. Think like prime version. He's that big, he's that fast, he's able to make plays down the field. Tucker Kraft can work in the intermediates, and he's going to run through your face. So George Kittle-esque in that way, if you want to think about it that way. Green Bay, I think Green Bay's best personnel grouping this year is going to include having those two tight ends on the field at the same time because that's going to make the defense play big, and it's going to make opposing or it's going to make their offense just able. They can run it, they can throw it. They're too fast for some of these defenders that are going to have to play this way. And if you put a couple, it doesn't matter which receivers you throw out there. We just talked about how many guys can be out there to make plays too.
yeah, the two receiver, two tight end set's going to be something really hard for defenses to defend. That's going to be.
And
really
the funny thing is, we haven't even gotten to their defense yet.
And that was where I wanted to go next. Is Hafley's getting hyped about what he's bringing to the team this year?
Yeah, he is. He's a very impressive listen. Again, this might mean absolutely nothing once the reps are live and the rounds are live, but Hafley has a lot of different interchangeable pieces, which is something the Packers tried to target. They signed Xavier McKinney, and their defensive line has been the best group throughout training camp. So Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Lucas Van Ness, Preston Smith, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, like all these guys are getting after the opposing quarterback. And again, some of that is Zach Tom's not playing. Some of that is that Sean Clifford was playing. So maybe there are some things that happen a little bit quicker if the starting quarterback is out there. But I'm a firm believer that the way you win championships most of the time starts with, can you protect the passer? Can you rush the passer? Green Bay has been good, not great at rushing the passer over the last couple of years. I think they have a chance to be great this year at getting after the opposing quarterback. And I think the key that kind of unlocks that whole thing is Lucas Van Ness, because when they drafted him, they thought he was going to be like potential to have one of the best players at his position in the sport. Did okay last year, really came on towards the end of the year. Rashawn Gary's a star. Need a little more from him, but Rashawn Gary's a star. And Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, I think some of these guys have chances to really get upfield and really disrupt some stuff in the passing game under this new scheme.
And if Edgerrin Cooper is anything that we hope he can be, look out. That may actually, for me, that's the X factor. If Edgerrin Cooper comes in,
I don't think he's going to start.
And go ahead.
I don't know if he's going to start.
Quay
Walker, I think you've got. I don't know if he's going to start. I think Quay Walker is penciled in. But Isaiah McDuffie played for Hafley before. And with McDuffie having played there before, that puts him at. He's made some plays too. Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, is a tough position to learn and just be tossed out there. I'm really excited about Edgerrin Cooper. I really liked him for this draft class. But it's going to be interesting to see because, yes, they have three linebackers in their new base 4-3, but they're going to play nickel 80% of the time. So, like, if you're going to play only two backers that long.
I hope you're correct because that means you got Edgerrin Cooper on the bench. That means what you got out there on the field is actually better than not better than Edgerrin Cooper, but a better fit for now. And Edgerrin Cooper can sit there and start maybe, come in on third down, do whatever he's got to do for a year, and then move in. So, and maybe like a Lucas Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness, I agree with you. He didn't do a whole lot last year. He came on strong at the end of the year, and now we're looking at him as possibly jumping in there to that starting role. and making an impact. And if Edgerrin Cooper can do the same thing, whether it's middle of the season or next year, beginning of the season, oh my God, we're in good shape. And I love Jeff Hafley. I love
we want to make a final prediction.
I simply love what they're doing.
We're just about to 9 o'clock here, so let's put a bow on this thing. As far as your prediction for the season, I put links to a couple of recent articles. What is your overall take on what you expect?
I wrote right after the season ended that last year was like a 1-year sabbatical of the expectations being Super Bowl or bust. Well, welcome back, because now the expectations again are Super Bowl or bust. You either won a championship or you didn't. And my colleague, my boss, whatever you want to call him, Bill Huber, always says this is title town, not division title town. So I think that I think Green Bay is going to win the NFC North. I do like again, this is all barring health and everything like that. I am not a blind homer. I do not pick the Packers and the teams and all this stuff to do these things every single year. I have never heard so much positive vibes surrounding a team in Green Bay in quite some time, openly talking about they can win a championship and how everything they just feel like is going to come together. The last time I can remember something like that is 2010, which, surprise, surprise, they won a championship that year. I think there will be some moments where you're like, are you sure? But I think there's going to be some ups and downs. There always are. But I think they're going to be one of the very best teams in football. And I don't know if they're going to have a chance to slay that dragon against San Francisco, because I think that is like, if you guys are, I'm sure, well, you guys were around, so you remember the 90s when it was, they need to beat Dallas. They need to beat Dallas. They need to beat Dallas. Well, the year they won the Super Bowl, they didn't have to play Dallas. So
they didn't have to play Dallas, but they did beat San Fran.
So they quote unquote missed out on having that opportunity to do that. I think that's possible. We talked about the Niners earlier. Between some of the issues in their locker room with guys maybe wanting to not be there anymore or wanting more money or complaining about stuff like that. And the fact that they've played like 600 games in the last 3 seasons because they've been in the NFC title game or the Super Bowl each of the last 3 years. I think that could be something that comes into play for them. But Green Bay might have then you look around the rest of the NFC. Philadelphia's got questions. Dallas has questions. The Rams, San Francisco, all these teams have question marks surrounding them. I think there's a really good argument that Green Bay should be one of, if not the favorite in the NFC. I think you guys should start looking at hotels in New Orleans. That's what my expectation is for the season.
I love it. I love it because I'm right there with you. Exactly.
I'm an expectations guy. I hate to set expectations too high, but it's hard not to with this team and the quality of. I guess what it boils down to: will Hafley's attempts at doing new things on defense succeed enough to hold back other teams? That's kind of, I guess, where I'm at with the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think they can score enough. Like, that's the other thing. Can you go score for? They can go score for score with a team if they need to.
2 things real quick. You may have to go. I'm going to the Packer game. Packers in Indianapolis. Packers in Indy up in Green Bay. Matt and I and his 2 boys, my grandsons, are going up there for 4 days. We're going to have the time of our lives. Second thing, look at good. That'd be awesome. I'll text you and we'll go do dinner or something. I got a jersey at Goodwill. It's the puffy jersey. It's got this, and it's a Terry Glenn jersey from 2002. Gosh. I am reasonably sure this is a game-worn jersey because Terry Glenn wouldn't have gotten. He was 56 catches, 87 yards, 2 TDs. They're not making a jersey in that year for a player that's not even a 2. You had Javon Walker and you had Donald Driver. He was a 3 at best. This, I'm pretty sure, was a game-worn jersey. $7. $7, baby. I'm wearing it. Whoa.
Jake, we'll let you fly, man.
Appreciate you guys. Next time I'll make sure they're somewhere else.
You're good.
All right, JW. Love talking to you, buddy. See you later.
Bye, buddy. There goes our
buddy. The line of the day. Oh, you broke the screen. Oh, my God.
Follow him on si.com. The link is in the chat. And Joanne is already thinking, oh, yeah, I got to follow Jacob Westendorf on si.com because he was really good on the show today. Right, Joanne?
What? I didn't hear that.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. I was going to be completely forgiving if you decided to just bow out for the show today. So kudos to you.
Joanne's a trooper.
You are.
Joanne's a
Even
trooper.
though I was
She's
just
in it.
up in Wisconsin, I didn't make it to Green Bay, but close enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I was up in Black River Falls last weekend for a family reunion and had a good time up there. And we spent the night in Toma. Have you spent the night in Toma at the Cranberry Inn? Cranberry Lodge?
I've been to Toma. I've been through it, but I've never spent the night there.
The Cranberry Festival, I think, is in September.
Yeah, big Cranberry Festival every year in Toma. It's quite the place. So we're fans of the Cranberry Lodge there.
Anything that can be made into cranberries is made into cranberries.
Awesome. Well, what would you like to report this week, if anything, Joanne? What's going on in your world?
We do have the Auto Envy coming up next week. I'm not sure what that all involves, but foster dogs are going to be there. Other
Auto
than
Envy?
that, nothing else that I can think of. You know, we do have one of the dogs from that Belvedere fiasco that happened. I don't know if you had heard about that, but there were 54 dogs that were just dumped
dogs
at a walking area. It's between Rockford and Belvedere, and Peter is working to try. I think, you know, we talked about it, there's no cameras or anything, but someone has to know something. And these dogs were in very bad shape and will take a long time to recover. Most of them went to the Chicago area because we couldn't take on that many dogs anywhere around here. But
this isn't like 10 or 12 dogs. This was over 50 dogs.
Yeah, 50. Yeah, and we do have one in our foster care right now that was live trapped like 5 to 6 days after the incident on that date. So
that's just wild.
Yeah, that is a tragedy.
As usual, there's quite a few cats available, and right now a lot of kittens. And according to your post this morning, just a few minutes ago, pairs are only $140. Single kittens $85, includes appropriate vaccines, testing, spay, neuter, all of that. 11 to 3, open today at Paws Humane Society. And we got some snapshots of some available kittens on the Facebook page. All these little kittens looking for them.
If you want.
What's that?
We'll talk about football if you want.
Oh,
all right. Yeah.
No, I mean when you come to adopt your cat.
Yeah. You can ask Joanne to predict the Packers season, and she'll be glad to tell you something.
Well, Greg, you asked Jake what he thought about the prediction. You didn't ask me. For the Packers.
No. I think we needed to let him go. He was under attack.
Oh, I know. Joanne, did you hear what the little kid said? Oh no, I think you broke the screen.
What?
Good job, Dad.
Oh my God. His wife is going to be so mad.
He broke the computer screen or what?
We don't know if it's computer or TV. We heard a crash, and then all of a sudden it's like.
They're always fun.
Funny. That was funny.
He's married to a good one. She'll understand. She gets that. She's good.
Gotta let my dog out 1 second here. All right, baby, come on.
All right, the dog's got to take a break. Joanne's got to.
I need her to leave anyway because she's not.
We kind of took our tour of Paws to
morning.
the Facebook page today, so that we got that going for us. Anything else we want to do to wrap things up before we do our big number of the week and send people on their way for the weekend?
I don't know.
Next week will be in August.
Next week is August already. Looking forward to chatting with Brad and Andrea next week.
August August.
Brad Hoey is the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau lead guy. He's going to be on with us talking about Barb Fest.
Nice.
Barbs, you know all about the.
Well,
Barb.
yeah, it's next week is all about girls named Barb that will be at the festival, right?
That could be. I don't know. And then Andrea Cox, she heads up Blue 815, and of course is a part of the Jamie Cox Foundation. We're going to talk with her about an event coming up as well. So next week, and next week could be an interesting week too for a couple different reasons, and I'll tell you guys why off the air here. But let's just say next week's show has a potential of not going at all. Just so you know, there's a possibility we may have to postpone everything, but plan on being here at 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully everything will be okay. Yeah, that should wrap that all. Let's wrap things up with big number of the week. Let's do that. Joanne with the big lead, 5-1 in our current race to 10. And our big number of the week this week is 1.3 billion. That's with a B. 1.3 billion is the answer. Auction or ads? ADS, ads. Auction or ads? I am looking up because I know I got Tom's text. So the answer that Tom gave me is right there. I got that. All right, Joanne, auction or ads? Give me your guess. 3, 2, 1, go.
Auctions.
You're going with auction. Guess who also went with auction?
Could it be
this
Tom?
guy?
You're both getting a point.
This guy.
Both not getting a point. The largest, most complete Stegosaurus fossil ever discovered is called Apex, APEX, Apex. And billionaire Ken Griffin bought it at auction. He didn't pay $1 billion for it, though. It was $44.6 million. He says he plans to lend it to a United States museum. $1.3 billion is the ad spend on this year's Paris Olympics. The Olympic Games actually started Thursday. I know the opening ceremony was Friday, but they actually started playing games on, I think, even maybe Wednesday night. But Thursday, soccer, rugby, handball, archery, shooting competitions all got started. 70 official sponsors for the Paris Olympic Games, spending a combined $1.3 billion to shellac the world with their advertising. Did you see any of the opening ceremony yesterday?
Not 1 second. I wasn't home. I wasn't home last night until late, and when I got home, I started watching some other stuff, and I just didn't.
Well, I wanted to see it, and I didn't see it live because I was busy during the middle of the day, because it was in Paris. So evening in Paris is about noon here. So the opening ceremony started like around noon local time. But when we were at Shattered Saloon last night watching and listening to the Rock Surfers, one of the screens had NBC on, so they were showing the opening ceremony. And I was like, I leaned over to my wife and I said, I heard the cauldron, this Olympics cauldron is part of a hot air balloon. How in the world they did that, I don't know. But we got to, keep an eye on the screen every once in a while. The opening ceremony was done like during a rainstorm. It was raining in Paris, and they kept the flame lit.
Didn't they say that the players were canoeing down the
big
river,
barges going down the River Seine? Yeah.
Seine.
So instead of having to march, they just had to stand in a boat and hold up their country flag and wave. So
interesting.
I didn't catch that part of it. It had already passed that part, but the cauldron that they lit is the bottom part of a like a hot air balloon looking thing. And it's pretty interesting. And of course, the Olympic symbol on the Eiffel Tower is iconic already. It's pretty epic. So Team USA, go USA. We'll see how the Olympics wash out. My dog wants to walk now too, so I think it's time to take the dogs for a walk.
All right. Are we going to stick around for 2 minutes? I have a question for you off the air.
Okay.
Nothing
we'll stick
related
around
to anything.
Off the air.
Well, you said you want to tell us something about next week. So, Joanne, are you sticking around too?
Hold on after the show, okay? We're going to talk off the air, Joanne.
How do we do that?
Just
You don't do
go anywhere.
anything.
Stay where you are. All right?
Oh, you turn
Remember,
everything
friends,
else off.
you change the world
No,
when you help one
you don't
person.
do anything.
Be a blessing to someone this week. We'll come back next week, hopefully, and do another In Crowd 815 podcast. Everybody, take care. Have a good week.
In crowd, 815. In crowd, 815.